The Zelver Dominion had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Their fleets spanned the stars, their weapons shattered planets, and their enemies crumbled before them. They were the supreme force, unmatched and unquestioned. Power, to them, was absolute, measured in the strength of their armadas and the submission of lesser species. When their scouts first cataloged Earth, they barely spared it a second glance. A young, warlike species with no interstellar presence, no warp drives, no shields, barely beyond their own solar system. By every metric that mattered, humanity was irrelevant. The Emperor dismissed them with a flick of his clawed hand. Primitive, unworthy of consideration. To the Zelver, conquest was routine. They had shattered civilizations far greater than Earth. Worlds with fleets that could blot out the stars. Defenses layered over centuries. None had survived. Humanity, they assumed, would be no different. A single fleet would be enough. A show of force and ultimatum, and if necessary, a swift obliteration. No species had ever withstood them. No species had ever surprised them. General Kelzeric led the expeditionary force. A veteran of 100 campaigns. He had never known defeat. His fleet moved through space like a vast predator, cold and efficient. As they reached the edges of the solar system, he reviewed the final intelligence reports. Humans had waged countless wars among themselves. Their history was drenched in conflict. Empires rising and falling, weapons of mass destruction, battles that turned continents to wastelands. Yet they were still here. That alone was an anomaly. Most species self-destructed long before reaching the stars. But Kelzeric was uninterested in philosophy. He saw no strategic brilliance in their wars, just chaos, brutality, and desperation. Nothing the Dominion hadn't crushed before. He sent out the standard ultimatum: surrender and be absorbed into Dominion, or resist and be erased. There was no third option. The response came faster than expected. A simple message, broadcast from Earth. No, Kelzeric chuckled. Defiance was common. It never lasted. He ordered the fleet forward, prepared to unleash the might of the Dominion upon a species too foolish to kneel. As they advanced past the orbit of Mars, sensors detected no fleet mobilization, no planetary defenses coming online. It was almost disappointing. The battle, if one could call it that, would be over in moments. A minor species on fringes of the galaxy had dared to stand against the Zelver. They would learn, as all others had, what true power was. As the Zelver fleet entered Earth's orbit, Kelzeric expected the usual sequence of events: panic, surrender, and ultimately, annihilation. Instead, something unexpected happened. Their weapons malfunctioned. Missiles detonated prematurely. Energy beams dispersed mid-flight. Targeting systems flickered, struggling to lock onto anything. Confusion spread among his officers. This had never happened before. Zelver technology was the pinnacle of precision. Kelzeric demanded answers. His technicians scrambled for explanations. A virus? Impossible. Their systems were isolated, shielded from external interference. And yet, something was disrupting them, something beyond their understanding. Then the first strike came. A Zelver battleship, one of their most advanced, was disabled in an instant. No explosion, no visible attack, just silence as its power systems failed and it drifted lifelessly. Before anyone could react, another ship went dark, then another. Kelzeric's hands tightened into fists. This wasn't brute force. It was something far worse. Control. Humanity was not engaging in a conventional battle. They were dismantling the fleet piece by piece, striking where it hurt the most. Its command, its infrastructure, its very ability to function. The Zelver had faced war before, but they had never faced this. Their conquests were built on overwhelming force, on the belief that power was a simple equation of firepower and submission. Humanity fought differently. Zelver systems were failing, but human ships remained fully operational. They moved in coordinated patterns, exploiting every weakness the Zelver didn't even realize they had. A fleet that should have wiped out an entire planet was now on the defensive. Then came the final insult. Humans weren't even using the best technology. Their ships were primitive by galactic standards, their weapons simple kinetic projectiles. And yet, They were winning. Kelzeric watched in disbelief as a single human-piloted strike craft evaded his fleet's fire, maneuvering in ways that defied all logic. The pilot pushed their ship to limits the Zelver wouldn't dare attempt, because no other species would risk their own destruction just to win. The strike craft slammed a high-speed projectile into the exposed thrusters of a Zelver dreadnought. A vulnerability no one should have known existed. A direct hit, the explosion rippled to a flagship, sending it into a slow, uncontrolled descent toward Earth's atmosphere. The fleet was in chaos. Kelzeric could feel it, the shifting tide, the realization among his officers. The Zelver were losing. The impossible was happening. For the first time in the history of the Dominion, an invasion fleet was forced to retreat. The remnants of the Zelver fleet limped away from Earth, battered and humiliated. Kelzeric sat in silence, staring at the damage reports. He had never lost a battle. No Zelver general had. The Dominion had ruled the stars of millennia, and yet here they were, defeated by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The Emperor demanded an explanation. Kelzeric had none. The humans had no superior technology, no overwhelming force. So how had they won? A captured human pilot was brought before him. Commander Hayes. The Zelver interrogators had tried everything. Threats, pain, even their most sophisticated mind probes. The human remained defiant. Kelzeric stepped into the cell, studying him. The man was bruised, exhausted, yet his eyes still burned with something the Zelver did not understand. How? Kelzeric asked. How did you win? Hayes smirked. Because we had to. The answer made no sense. Every species fought for survival, and yet the Zelver had never seen anything like this. Humanity fought as if losing was not an option, even when their technology fell short, even when their fleets were outnumbered. They never stopped. Kelzeric studied human history. What he found shook him to his core. They had survived world wars, nuclear devastation, genocides, plagues, disasters that should have wiped them out. And yet, every time, they had adapted, grown stronger. Other species fell to chaos. Humans thrived in it. They didn't just fight wars. They endured them. They won by refusing to break. The Zelver had always assumed power was measured by conquest, by the strength of a fleet or the size of an empire. But what if power was something else? What if true power was not in domination, but in resilience? Kelzeric turned off the data screen. He had his answer. For the first time in his life, he questioned everything. The Emperor did not take the loss lightly. The Dominion had never been defeated before, and Kelzeric knew what that meant, retribution. The Zelver would not accept humiliation. They would return with a larger fleet, with stronger weapons, with the full might of the Dominion. And yet, something unsettled him. He had spent weeks studying humanity, dissecting their strategies, their history, their psychology. What he saw changed him. The Zelver had believed themselves to be the pinnacle of evolution, perfect, unchallenged, supreme. But in humanity, Kelzeric saw something greater. They were flawed, wild, chaotic, and yet their strength did not come from perfection. It came from their ability to fight, to endure, to adapt. His own fleet had seen it firsthand. The way humans exploited weaknesses no other species even noticed. How they ignored the limits of their own physiology, pushing past exhaustion, past pain, past fear. Kelzeric had fought 100 wars, but he had never feared an enemy. Until now, the Emperor summoned him. The command was clear. Prepare for a full-scale invasion. Erase humanity. Kelzeric stood before the Grand Council, surrounded by the Dominion's highest warlords. They expected vengeance. He gave them something else. We cannot defeat them, he said simply. The chamber fell silent. He spoke of what he had seen, of how humanity did not fight wars to win, but to survive, how they turned weakness into strength, how they never accepted defeat, how their very nature made them unstoppable. They are not the strongest, he admitted, not the most advanced, not the oldest. He paused, then uttered the words that shook the Dominion to its core. But they will outlast us. The warlords erupted in outrage. Coward, traitor, fool. But Kelzarek had made his decision. He would not lead the invasion. He would not fight a war that could not be won. The Dominion would come. It would send more fleets, more weapons, and yet he knew how it would end, not with Earth's destruction, but with humanity standing over the ruins of the Dominion. For the first time in history, the Zelver had learned the truth. They thought they knew power until they saw humanity.